For a lot of people living with renal failure, a transplant is the preferred long-term treatment option. A successful transplant gives your body a break from dialysis and returns you pretty much to normal life. The good news is that this is one area where things are improving all the time.
If we look back at the 1960s, maybe 10% of people's transplants worked, and now it's 90% are working at the end of the first year. And the average life expectancy of a transplanted kidney, even in the last few years, has risen from 7 years to 10 years.
If you're thinking about a transplant, the first step is to talk to your consultant, who'll go through the options of living donor or national transplant waiting list with you. Whatever your decision, it's important to stay as healthy as possible, so that if a transplant opportunity arises, you're fit enough to have the operation. I was on CAPD and then HD before I was lucky enough to have a transplant for my husband Keith. It was a bit of an emotional roller coaster for the whole family, but it was fantastic when we found that Keith was a good transplant match.
I really didn't think of it as too much of a hurdle to jump over, really. It was a natural thing to decide to do, and so we moved forward and we planned it.
How much do you want me to put in the pan?
A couple of tablespoons.
They were honest with us. They didn't want to keep anything from us, but it became so much part of our life that we didn't feel we needed to talk about it that much.
A couple of times they did come and require more detailed conversation on what would be happening to Daddy as well, and how would it work. Oh, and would they still get their Christmas presents? Because it was Christmas time.
We're both IT people, and in some respects we just looked at it as a project, and we worked our way through from step to step.
It's going to be difficult. What's a Hindu queen? Once it had happened, again, I could hardly believe it for a little while. I immediately felt a million times better than I had probably felt for 10 years. Even though I was sore, I just come out of a major surgery, I knew that I felt different. And we just went through from there a period of fairly swift recovery.
I was out of hospital within 3 days. I felt pretty good. As I say, I just trouble doing your shoelaces up and things like that. The most frustrating thing probably was being at home for a month and not being able to do anything.
Since then, things have slowly been getting back to normal. Now I've had the transplant though, I have to make sure I take my anti-rejection drugs every day, and that's something that will continue throughout the life of the donated kidney.
The potential for a person's own immune system to attack the kidney remains there throughout life, and it is quite possible, even having had a kidney for 10 or 20 years, if you forget to take the tablets, you can get rejection coming through and can lose the kidney.
It's been an extremely rewarding experience from my perspective, because she really is back to normal now.
She seems a lot happier, she can eat a lot more, we can have a lot more fun.
We go shopping. Before I had to, watch her and be careful in case I tired her out, and now we just go and we have a great time.
It's just made a complete difference, and our family's a lot happier now.
You can't miss your daily anti-rejection drugs, so I set an alarm on my mobile phone and I don't switch it off until I've taken them. When you've had a transplant, skincare is really important. See a dermatologist and wear a hat and sunscreen throughout winter and summer. You might also be able to get your sunscreen on prescription. We all have to deal with a number of different medicines and a variety of restrictions on what we eat, what we drink, and the amount we drink. Regular blood tests give us all the information we need to know about how well our bodies are working. Test results show us the levels of some key minerals and other substances in our blood, which can really impact on our health and well-being. Understanding your results, what are known as your numbers, and how diet and treatment can affect them is really important.
Getting those numbers right will mean that patients will either feel better or they are likely to live longer. The reason that it's quite useful for most people to understand how the numbers work is it does allow them to have a bit of control over their lives and their lifestyle, and to make decisions about what they want to do, whether they want to stick to the diet, whether they want to take the tablets, and make those decisions in an informed way so they know the balance of the risks and the benefits.
Your phosphate level is 1.4.
Some of the numbers, haemoglobin, potassium, phosphate and creatinine, are particularly important in that equation of living better and longer, and they can all be controlled through diet and treatment. Low haemoglobin means you're anemic, so you're likely to feel tired and short of breath. EPO injections or iron supplements will help here. You can also adjust your diet, but make sure you speak to a dietitian first. Keeping your potassium level under control is absolutely critical, particularly if you're on HD, where you're not dialysing on a daily basis. Often, there are no symptoms to tell you something's wrong, and there can be serious implications.
Patients who take too much potassium in their diet between haemodialysis sessions can get high levels of potassium in the bloodstream, and this can actually be very dangerous indeed. It can cause the heart to beat irregularly and can in some instances be fatal. So for haemodialysis patients it's very important to stick to the potassium element of their diet and not to break that.
So if potassium is a problem for you, try to avoid high potassium foods like bananas, crisps, chocolate, spinach, baked beans and drinks like coffee, fruit juice and blackcurrant cordial.
If you have a very high level of phosphate, it's bad for you in two important ways. It's bad for your bones and can lead to softening of bones and development of pain in the bones, which can be quite debilitating for patients. And high levels of phosphate are also very bad for the circulation and can lead to calcification or hardening of the arteries, which can cause strokes and heart attacks in later life.
High phosphate foods to avoid include dairy products, eggs and nuts. If you do overindulge, you'll soon know about it. I'm sure many of us have experienced the awful itches. Alongside our dialysis and diet, phosphate binders taken with food are essential in keeping phosphate levels under control. There are a range of these tablets your consultant can prescribe, so if you find one type difficult to take, you can usually switch to another that suits you better. These are some of the key numbers you can manage. Your consultant will also monitor other things like calcium and post-transplant creatinine, and where necessary will talk to you about adjusting your treatment to improve the levels there. Take a look at the National Kidney Federation website, which is a useful source of information on knowing your numbers. Alongside diet, it's also important to get the balance of fluid in your body right. Too much fluid can result in swollen ankles and leg ulcers, shortness of breath and high blood pressure, which obviously could lead to heart problems.
Patients who don't pass any urine at all and drink fluid will keep that fluid until it's taken away by the dialysis process. We very commonly see patients who've taken too much fluid between dialysis sessions, and they can arrive in hospital very unwell, very distressed, with water on the lungs and need emergency dialysis to put things right. So for haemodialysis patients it's quite important to restrict the amount of fluid you take in between dialysis sessions. In patients on peritoneal dialysis, the fluid restriction that you're asked to stick to is very variable and is set for each individual patient.
I certainly found sticking to my diet on dialysis a real challenge. Food is such a big part of our lives. Top London chef Lawrence Keogh has had a successful transplant for 6 years now, but before that he was on COPD. News of his dietary restrictions didn't go down too well.
They were talking about potassium and phosphate levels, and I didn't really understand that at the time, but they said potassium was things like bananas, you should avoid, and phosphates were things like cheeses, which you should avoid, which I was devastated, because I love cheese, especially being a chef. And then I was told, watch your fluid intake, which was like, well, excuse me, why? I can't go down the pub with my mates anymore, So all these things were dreadful. So everything was, all the sort of good things when I seemed to be being taken away from me.
Even for a real food expert, getting the balance right proved to be tricky.
It's a real seesaw effect to get it really fine-tuned, and it's real like tailor-making your body to sort of get right with it all, and your mind and focus about, hang on, if I eat this today, I can't really eat that tomorrow, but if I drink this, I can have that later, and I'll save that for tomorrow afternoon. So you're constantly planning and judging.
For Lawrence, getting the diet right was about taking control and feeling good about food again.
Get the list of what you can have and start focusing on them and getting the balance right, you know. But definitely sort of look ahead, look forward to sort of things, and try and at least 1 or 2 days a week make something special that you are going to focus on and enjoy, so you know you're going to have it. When that time comes around, you've got a treat, because all these sort of treats are taken away from you, so it's important that you've got something to look forward to.
Finding alternatives to some of your favourite foods can help you to feel you're not missing out. If you've got to cut out the gravy, for example, try this suggestion from Lawrence.
I sort of like fry some onions in butter, sprinkle it with some Worcester sauce, and maybe a twist of pepper, no salt obviously. And of course the next day you could still use them onions in a sandwich or a roll with something, you know. So hot or cold, you know, things like that to get that kind of moreish richness of a flavour that you're after.
And if tomatoes are a complete no-no, there are still plenty of ways to enjoy your pasta.
Well, everyone associates pasta with like big, rich red tomato sauces and purees, but you don't have to do that. Some simple onion, olive oil, butter, grated lemon zest is lovely in pasta with a bit of fish. And with meat, you know, careful use of herbs is great. Some chopped rosemary, garlic, and a bit of chicken in there. You know, maybe a touch of tinned sweet corn. You know, just balancing things out, you know.
One thing that is important is the social side of food. Eating out should be fine, and if you can't see it on the menu, don't be afraid to ask.
You know, tell the waitress in charge, say, I've got dietary restrictions, you know, I can't eat X, Y, Z. Is it possible that this can be prepared for me? And I think 9 times out of 10 restaurants, a good restaurant will look after you and sort something out, you know, because it's all about hospitality in restaurants, and if they can't get that right, well, don't go back there, you know.
I use a pill dispenser. It helps me remember what medicines to take and when.
If you overdo the phosphate, a hot bath will help soothe those awful itches.
If you're asked to keep a food diary, you can use your mobile phone and take photographs of your meals. It's a really easy way to keep track of the food you're eating during the day.